Hello, I'm Heidi Seligman, one of the staff therapists with the Lawyers Assistance Program of the Washington State Bar Association, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Work Plus Wellness Series presentation, Non-Traditional Career Options for Lawyers. I'd like to introduce Sean Lipton, who will be giving our Work Plus Wellness Series presentation for today. Sean is the founder of The Trusted Coach, a career counseling and development practice focusing on helping people determine their ideal career fit. With his background of almost 10 years of providing career counseling help and guidance to Seattle University Law School students and graduates, he is someone with a proven expertise in helping attorneys navigate the job search in challenging times, focusing on both traditional and non-traditional career options. We are delighted to have Sean today with us, and he will be sharing his experience and guidance on this important topic. Thank you for being here, Sean.
Thank you, Heidi. Hello, everyone. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and hello to everybody out there where this is getting streamed. As Heidi said, my name is Sean Lipton, and I've recently started The Trusted Coach. But prior to that, and going back a number of years, I'm a graduate of the University of Connecticut School of Law. And when I was in law school, I knew pretty quickly that the law was not for me. Unlike many of you who may have gone through law school and maybe disliked it, first year was tough, or maybe you loved it, I really knew from a very early time that it was just not going to be the career for me. But I had started it, so I decided I better keep going and didn't have really any idea what I wanted to do, so I continued on. And in my third year, I worked for a firm just to make sure that I really was not fit for this career, and it was confirmed. Good experience. The lead partner wanted to take me under his wing and teach me the craft, but I knew that it was not for me. That said, I had gone through 3 years, so I thought, I better take the bar, right? And I still give this advice to people that are in their third year that are thinking that this may not be the option for them. Under rare circumstances, it may not be valuable to take the bar, but I thought I should do this, right? And I had taken about 5 or 6 years off before I went to law school. I had spent time overseas. I speak Mandarin Chinese. So I still thought, okay, if I'm going to practice, I'll do it in an international type field, international law. After 3 years of law school, I still wasn't sure what that was, but it made sense to me. So I decided to take the New York bar. And I studied hard for it, and I took the bar. And as some of you may know, it takes forever for the bar results to come out in New York. They don't come out until like late November. I think when I took it, it was around November 20th. So I graduated law school in 1999. 1999 was the top of the dot-com boom. I was in Hartford, Connecticut. The economy was good there. There were plenty of jobs. Nothing like Seattle, where really in Seattle in 99, jobs were like falling off the trees. But it was a good economy. But I was jobless. So jobless and debt coming due, I had to move home. Brutal, It took 5 or 6 years off, so I was 30 years old. Parents welcomed me, but it was a hard pill to swallow. And during those couple of months, I was looking for work to no avail, and finally, bar results came out. And my parents live in a small town in Connecticut, 2,000 people. And there's about 5 or 6 houses that are behind this inn, and they were in one of those houses. And there was no cable TV. They had direct TV, and recently they had introduced this web TV. So you could get access to the web through direct TV. And it was horrible. Constantly cut out. It was worse than dial-up. It was very, very slow. And with that, at 12:01 on November 20th, I went to this web TV to see if I passed the bar. And as you can imagine, I couldn't even get on. Because I wasn't alone at 12:01. Everybody who had taken the New York bar was looking for the results at 12:01. But finally, after about 45 minutes, I got on, and I went to the L's, and I searched for Lipton. Now, all of you can imagine I wouldn't be telling this story if the result was good. So, looked down the L's, didn't see Sean Lipton, looked again 2 or 3 times, and still didn't see my name. So, at that point, it was about 1 or 1:30 in the morning, and I decided to go back up to my room and try to get some sleep. And I'm laying in bed, same bed that I think I had slept in from the time I was in high school, thinking to myself, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? And the story gets a lot better from there, but I'm not going to bore you with all the other details. Suffice to say, within a month, I had packed my bags, driven cross-country, and arrived in Seattle. Over the next 5 or 6 years, I held 5 different jobs. One of them was for about 3 years, but held about 5 different jobs. And during that time, I figured out exactly what I should be doing. I figured out what I was good at. I figured out what my personality was. I figured out what was important to me. And then from there, as many of you know, I ended up working for the Seattle University School of Law as the Assistant Dean of the Center for Professional Development. I did that for about 8 years or so. And during that time, I further refined my strategy and further developed what the steps are to take a JD, take all the experience you've learned as an attorney, and transition it to another career. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today about. So let's jump in. Okay, so the agenda, 1, should you stay or should you go? 2, whether you decide to stay or go, you need to do a real thorough inventory of your starting point. From there, we'll talk about destinations. And then we'll talk about how to go from your starting point to your destination. And then I'll open it up for questions. Okay, so should you stay or should you go? Don't worry, I'm not going to start singing the first few lines of the Clash song. I'm tone deaf, so that would really clear the audience. But in any case, over the years, I have found that there are a lot of attorneys that overcompensate. They're unhappy in what they're doing. They maybe don't like their environment. So they say, I need to get out. I don't like this. I need to do something else. So you just want to be clear on whether or not you genuinely want to leave the law, or you just need to change a few things to bring some fulfillment and happiness to your career. So really just, even in this first step, start doing an inventory about your environment. Do you like the firm? Is it too big? Is it too small? Do you hate the billable hour? A lot of people do. Do you want to go to an organization that doesn't value, or where you don't need the billable as much? Do you just need to change things outside of your life? Can you make adjustments after work that will serve you well, so your 9 to 5 could be a bit happier? Do you need to change the area of law? So you really want to think about, hey, do I really not like the law, or do I not like the environment that I'm in? So you really want to ask yourself, what things do you really enjoy about your job, and what things do you really enjoy about the things you do after your job, post 5 o'clock? And really be specific on this, and try to take almost the law out of it, and be very task-oriented. What are the things I do every day? And when you start identifying those things that you do every day, if a lot of them are what a lawyer does, then you may really start saying, hey, I actually like this, but I just hate where I am, or I hate the area of law that I have. So be very specific about that. And then also think about the things that you're good at. What you're good at may be what a lawyer does. It may be what other professions do too, but you just want to think like, okay, I am very good at these. in the law, these things are valued. And if they're not valued as much in another profession, then the law maybe still could be a good fit. Then also think about things you hate. Okay? Be very specific about that too. So if the things you hate add up to, all right, well, this is everything a lawyer does. I was right. My gut was right. I hate this. I should do something else. The other big thing to think about, and what I call the pivot, is to think about the move, the percent move you need to make. Do you need to make a 180? Do you need to completely change what you're doing and move to a completely new profession? Yes, maybe, but that's very difficult to do right off the bat. What I like better is to make small pivots. Maybe you're making a small move that really still values your JD, or maybe you're still practicing law, or maybe you're moving in an area that really still, where you're building some skills. So you don't need to make a major shift right away. It could be a small shift. Now you need to do the hard work in thinking about what a potential major shift would be, but you don't necessarily have to have it all figured out or have to make that move in one fell swoop. I had worked with somebody over a number of years who really wanted to be in the nonprofit world, but out of law school, she ended up getting a job outside of the traditional practice of law doing business development. Now, she always knew she needed to be in the nonprofit, but in her job, she was learning an amazing amount. She was building contacts. She was sort of paying down her debt. She was saving some money. She was providing the flexibility she needed to make a move later on. Now, during that time, she also made a lot of contacts and connected with the types of organizations where she really wanted to work. And over a 4 or 5 year period, she learned an amazing amount. She had fun in that job, but then she transitioned to what she really wanted to do. And she was able to make the argument that everything she had learned was very transferable to that new job. So you don't need to make a major, major pivot. Maybe you do, but some baby steps a lot of times work better. Okay. So, whether you're making a move or not, you want to do a good inventory. You want to have a good sense of where your starting point is. And I like to think about this in 4 areas. 1, you want to have a good sense of your knowledge, skills, and abilities. 2, your core values. 3, your personality. And 4, your purpose. What do you want to contribute? Now, with your purpose, as I said, I don't want you to be thinking about this like I have to have this all figured out. But if you're not thinking deeply about what you want to do, then you're sort of going to be a boat without a rudder. Okay, so knowledge, skills, and abilities. You could search on the internet for transferable skills for lawyers, and 100 things will come up. And many of those things are true. But I like to bring it down to sort of what I have on this slide. The core components of skills that are so transferable that every organization really needs, regardless of what type of industry. So first, lawyers are amazing. Well, some of you are amazing communicators, but I'm going to make the assumption that lawyers are amazing communicators, right? Great writers, strong presentation skills, able to take complex subjects and break them down into easy-to-understand concepts. Depending on the audience, could vary how they present that information, and also have the ability to build trust. So you work with a lot of clients. Why should clients tell you what's important to them? Why should clients share personal information? It's because you've done the hard work to ask the right questions, to develop an atmosphere where there's great trust. Hugely transferable no matter what you do. Project management. A lot of people don't necessarily think about project management in terms of what they do on a day-to-day basis. But lawyers are probably some of the best project managers. You're constantly pushing cases forward. You're constantly pushing agendas forward. You're working with opposing counsel. You're working with the courts if you're litigating. If you're not, you're working with a variety of different clients within a company. You have multiple cases going on at the same time. You have to be efficient with your time. You have to push forward agendas. You have to stay in budget. All these things are what a project manager does, and we'll get to that when we talk about destinations. But lawyers are great project managers. Very transferable skill. A lot of work out there in that arena. Analytical goes without saying. Whether it's a natural ability that you have, lawyers are excellent, have excellent analytical skills. Strategic. You're constantly working with clients. You're thinking about cases. You're thinking about how to develop strategies, theories. You're thinking about what opposing counsel might be thinking. You're thinking about what a counterparty, if you're doing a deal, might be thinking. Constantly at 30,000 feet, being very strategic, very transferable. Then I also want you to think about some of the skills that you utilize, but maybe not that often, or things you wish you were able to utilize, and when you became a lawyer, thought you would utilize more. And write those down as well. Now, the thing about all these things is that from there, you have to be very, very concrete. You actually have to write down how you've used these things. You can't just tell, you have to show. So you have to do a very specific, detailed inventory of all of the things that exhibit these skills or other skills that lawyers have. If you're just saying, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm a great writer, who cares? Meaningless to me. You have to show me that you are a great writer by exhibiting how you've worked on complex matters and how that would transition or transfer to the person you're talking to or the job you're applying to. Now, sometimes that's hard because, you get into your job, any industry, but lawyers especially, you get into your job, you're just doing it, and you're not necessarily thinking about what skills am I utilizing. So in addition to the PowerPoint, another thing that I had each attendee have is a PDF of keywords. These can be used for resume writing, work very well. So everything you do in this exercise can be easily transferable as you start developing your resume. But I think attorneys especially don't understand what they're doing. So utilizing this keyword list can really give you some hints or reminders of all that you've done. It's a really exhaustive list. There are many lists out there in the internet, but I like this one because it's categorized. It's comprehensive, and you could start looking down that list and say, yes, I've done that. I've conceptualized, I've developed, I've managed, I've advised, I've counseled, I've collaborated, etc., etc. So as you're going through that list, it'll give you a lot of hints on all the work that you've done as an attorney. Okay. Next, values. Values, the ones I have listed here, again, not exhaustive. There are a lot of other values you need to think about when you're making a potential transition. But these, when I'm working with clients and when I work with attorneys at SU, came up time and again. I've listed them as dichotomies, but of course there's degrees in sort of how extreme they are. But the first one is you want to think about, do you like working with a group, team, collaborating, or do you like to work alone? Now, a lot of people that I meet that really want to transition away from the law spend a lot of their time alone. And I think a lot of lawyers never realized how much time they spend alone, working in an office, maybe 8 or 10 hours a day, pounding out the work, and constantly writing, researching, and may barely talk to somebody for the whole day. Now, some people may love that, but a lot of people don't. I remember working with an attorney who had a previous career as an engineer. She came back to law school, interested in IP. She was an electrical engineer, didn't have a problem finding a job, was working at a boutique firm doing intellectual property, and she was going crazy because all she was doing was spending time in her office. And it was so different from her life before, which was very collaborative, which was very team project based. And she never realized how much she liked that. She loved it. Whereas now, she almost felt guilty asking the partner a question. And when she did, there was no chit-chat. The question was answered. She went back to her office, closed the door alone, and that partner had work to get done too. So If you love that, when you're thinking about transitioning, you want to think about something where you want to work alone. If you don't, you want to also be aware of that and work in something that's more collaborative, more team-based. The next one is, do you like to help others or do you like to influence people? Now, we'll get a little bit into this in personality as well, but when you're thinking about, and again, we could be splitting hairs here. If you influence people, you're helping. If you're helping people, you may be influencing. But this really is a dichotomy. So when you think about, at your core, great value, very important to you, makes you feel good that you like to help people, if you're helping people that you hate, you're not going to be fulfilled. So if you're working with clients that you just don't like, but a core value is helping, then it's going to be hard. Whereas another core value could be you want to influence people. Now, as you influence, you help too, but influencing is really persuading, changing opinions, changing attitudes. It's more the process of, hey, I have a feeling here of what needs to get done, and I want to take my client down a path and guide them so they know what needs to get done. Yes, I may be helping them at the end of the day, but my core value is not to help. So the client becomes less important, and it's more the work you do that's of primary importance. The next one, work-life balance versus advancement and challenging problems. Now again, potentially you can have both. I think there are possibilities where you can have both, but a lot of things have to align. Sort of if you want to have work-life balance and really focus on advancement and challenging problems, you need to really have a flexible company that you're working for, a flexible boss, somebody that will allow you to leave at 3 to watch the soccer game, but know that you're going to get online later and get the job done. But it's generally very, very difficult to do both if you really want the career and want to work on the most complex things. It just takes a lot of time. So you want to think about what's most important to you. If you're making a transition, do you want to have more balance in your life? Do you want to work set hours? Do you want to have a good job where you're valued, where you enjoy the people? Or sort of pushing and driving and doing the most complex things and having advancement, is that most important to you? So you want to sort that out. Then finally, creativity, change, variety versus stability, structure, predictability. So some people thrive on change. Some people need change. Some people get so bored when they're doing the same thing every single day. They have to push the envelope. They have to come up with new ideas and be supported when they come up with those ideas, so they can put them into practice and push them forward. Some people hate that. Right? Some people want a job that's predictable. They know what they're getting themselves into when they go to work. They're working with people that they like. They have structure. They know that that job's going to be there in 5 or 10 years. So think about which one you need. Okay. Next, personality. Now, there's a lot of ways to think about personality. The Myers-Briggs is an assessment that I think is very valuable when you're thinking about what's an ideal environment. I'm a big proponent of it. But today I want to look at it from a little bit of a different perspective, and also a very valuable way. And the perspective I want to look at it is, again, it joins with values. But I want you to think about it from what at your core is important to you. What motivates you? What do you need to feel good about yourself? What's important? And sort of 4 or 5 key components make up sort of personality in this perspective. One is you're people-driven. That means at your core, you have a concern for the growth, well-being of others. You are all about defending the rights of others, all about doing things that help others, ensuring others are successful and happy. It's all about people. It's people-focused. So links to values, if you want to help others, that's a core component. So If you're in a job that really is working maybe with a team or working in a process that doesn't really involve people, and at your core personality you need that, you're going to be unhappy. So the first is people. Second is performance-driven. And that is people that are all about results. They just want to drive results. They want to galvanize resources, time, money, people in order to drive results. Risk, opportunity, leading people, so that they can get the result that they want. They're persuading. So at your core, if your motivation, if what makes you feel good is driving results, when you're thinking about current job or next opportunity, you want to put yourself in a position where you're able to drive those results. Next is process. So a lot of lawyers tend to sort of fall in the process category. Process really are the people that are pure analytical. They're all about removing themselves from the situation. Emotions don't come into it. Looking at an issue from all sides and deciding the best course of action in a cautious way. Very self-reliant and self-dependence. The person that's process-driven, they probably can sit in their office for 10 hours, not know that it got dark, and be unbelievably happy. Want to use their own two hands to solve the problem. Give me the case, give me the facts, give me the issue. I'll sort this out. If I have a question that I want, I'll ask you. But I can sort this out myself. Then from there, you can have a combination of all three. The combination really are sort of people on steroids. They like to be known by a lot of people. They like to know a lot of people. Very flexible. Depending on the problem or the issue or who they're dealing with, they could change. They could be people, they could be performance, they could be process-driven. So the people with a pure combination generally love community, want to be members of community, want to be part of a group, need a team dynamic. That's where they're going to thrive. And you could have a combination of two. So for example, for me, I am a combination of people and performance. So originally when I was starting out in my career at SU, I thought, I'm here to help. I want to serve people. I want to help people find their career. And that's important to me, but it's not enough. I need to persuade. I need to drive results. I need to work with that person and then think, I have an agenda for you. We've talked about it, and I need to get you to where you need to be. And if I don't have that, I'm not fulfilled. The helping to me is not enough. So you want to think about where you fall on that continuum. So personality. And finally, purpose. Now, a lot of this is, I'm going to have you think deeply. And I want you to write things down in specific. Now, these 4 questions that are up there, it's not exhaustive. There are a lot more questions that you want to think about when you're thinking about purpose. And as I said, you don't have to have it all figured out. But you want to start thinking deeply about what you want to contribute. So that first question, if you had to write your epitaph, sorry, I don't want to be morbid, but if you had to write your epitaph, what do you want to be remembered for? What kind of causes are you passionate about? What would you do if you could not fail? And what would the ideal opportunity look like for you? And within this, you again want to be very, very specific. Some of you in the audience have had a long career already, I'm sure. So now you're thinking about, okay, well, what about this final portion of my career? What is it that I want to do? What do I want to contribute? What would I do if I couldn't fail? And if you're early in your career, same thing. You may pivot over a number of years, but if you don't have that guide that really says, this is what's important to me, these are the things that I want to do in my career that I spend a lot of time doing, then you're just going to, again, be sort of rudderless. So purpose. Okay, that's your starting point. You can't move further without your starting point. If you do, everything is just random. Oh, okay, well, I don't like the law. Well, this seems like my skills. This could be a job that I want to do. This could be interesting. You have to do the hard work to determine where your starting point is. From there, you could start thinking about destinations. Now, within destinations, this is not an exhaustive list. It's kind of my top 10. Some of them are slam dunks that really value all the skills you've learned as a lawyer and all the skills you've learned in law school. Some of them you may not have thought of as much, but when we talk about it, you really see that it could be an easy transition for everything you've done as a lawyer. So first one is compliance and regulatory positions. Now, this is a very huge growing field. Over the last 5 or 10 years, the world has gotten so much more regulated in a variety of industries, especially healthcare with ACA, ton of regulation. A lot of people don't understand that regulation. Slam dunk that lawyers can really figure it out and play a great advisory role. Finance, also heavily regulated, has gotten more regulated over the last 5 or 10 years. Banking, many industries. This is looked at as a real growth field. And it's using your degree and your work as a lawyer every single day. Sort of you're making sure that laws regulating an industry are followed. So compliance is a big one. Contracts manager, contract specialist, also a slam dunk for people that are lawyers, JDs, starting out, or seasoned. And this is, the final contract is going to get scrubbed by the legal department, but this is kind of a lot of the negotiation that happens. The terms of a deal, the making sure that the contract is being adhered to, or what you agreed on and how it's going to be performed is being adhered to. Renegotiation may be involved. Some compliance may be involved as well, so just making sure you adhere to the norms of the business and things of that nature. So contracts management, contract specialist, depending on the type of company you're working for, could play a big role in the negotiation, could be combined with business development. So at a smaller company that really may not have set contracts, you're taking what a vendor or what a partner has, and you may be working with it. So a lot of your legal experience and knowledge could come into play. Third, policy. Again, goes without saying. A lot of you know this. You research complex issues, you draft reports on those issues, and you present on what you drafted. Lawyer, 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 right? Now, the thing about policy is that there's very few policy positions in Seattle or in Washington State. We're a growing state. We have a pretty big population now, but these types of policy positions don't really exist. Where they exist is when you've already developed a great expertise in a field, and then you want to apply it to the policy realm. Then you're more competitive in a city like Seattle. But if you're a younger attorney and you're just starting out and you're really thinking you want to do policy, D.C. is really the place, right? There's so many policy positions in D.C. So a great field, but really tough unless you have direct experience in a specific field. So policy. Human resources, also a great field to transition into. This is, again, goes back to personality, goes back to values. If you really want to help people, if you really are focused on serving people, ensuring their success, defending the rights of people, HR could be a great field. Now, of course, you're also utilizing the legal skills that you've learned along the way. There's a lot of labor and employment issues. There's trying to work with the business groups to get the best out of a team, out of an organization. So HR is also a great field. Learning and development. A lot of you probably haven't thought about learning and development as a potential option, may not really even know what it is. But when you think about learning and development and about what, for example, a learning and development manager does, they do a lot of things that you have done as lawyers. So, for example, somebody in that field will maybe work with a team or work with the leadership to identify what are some of the areas of growth that are needed. What are some of the issues that a team or an organization may be having? What are the goals and problems to solve? And how can we use training to solve some of those problems? And then from there, the learning and development person will design a curriculum, do a needs assessment, assess that things have been carried out as and are serving the goals and needs of the client. Depending on the organization, it could also be presenting. So when you think about those components, lawyer, 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 right? You do that on a daily basis. You're identifying what the needs are of a client. You're identifying the problem. Then you're designing a strategy, curriculum. From there, you might be presenting. So learning and development is a big area. E-discovery. Now, again, that's an area that's growing by leaps and bounds, right? How to manage electronic information, the review, the documentation. Big firms will have people in-house that do this that maybe aren't practicing but are former attorneys, litigation support. And there are a lot of private companies that do this work as well. So in Seattle, Lighthouse is one of those companies. And they hire lawyers. They hire other people too, but they hire lawyers, and especially if you can show that you have a lot of project management experience. If you have some IT background or really interested in IT, then that could be very attractive to this type of company. So e-discovery, also a very, very good area. We talked about project management as a great skill that people have, but also program manager. So in a lot of nonprofits, you will take the lead on a program or a project that needs to be implemented. So if you're thinking about that type of pivot to that type of career, or you're really passionate about a specific area and you want to work for a nonprofit that's doing that type of work, you need to make the argument that you have the experience to take a project and be able to push it forward, work with many different constituencies, and lead that to fruition. So project management could be a great area. Trust officer and the philanthropic industry in general, generally tax planning, trusts and estates. If you have that background, this could be a great area. So with a trust officer, a lot of people are working in banks, and it's been described kind of as a quarterback, where you are managing, you're the point person with the client. So very client-driven, client-focused, and the client is a high net worth individual, and they have issues dealing with investment, wealth management, tax planning, how best to give their money, what their core mission is, and how they want to use their money. And a trust officer kind of manages that whole process and has knowledge in a variety of areas, but also knows who to tap into to get the client the information they need. In addition to that, the philanthropic industry has really grown as we've gotten more and more people with high net worths or family foundation. And again, this is sort of wealth management, but it's also a lot of advisory, a lot of strategy, a lot of working with clients to think about what their mission is, how best do they want to give their money, and having that tax knowledge can be a great, great asset, and this is a growing industry. Non-legal positions in law firms, a lot of those exist as well. We talked about e-discovery, business development and marketing. Granted, you may have to have some background in that, but if you've had a career and you've done a lot of business development, this could be an easy transition into that field. They hire non-lawyers too, but lawyers are working in that field and have gotten jobs. Learning and development as well. A lot of big firms have their own learning and development departments. A lot of lawyers work in those departments. So again, that could be a really good field. And of course, the business of law. So you look at a company like Avo, based here, they hire a lot of non-lawyers, but they're also hiring lawyers. Lawyers may be doing business development. They're the forward face of trying to connect with other lawyers so they can talk the talk. Evangelist type positions, promotion type positions. So the business of law is a great area as well. Serengeti is another company that focuses on client matters, e-billing, things of that nature. They hire a lot of lawyers to do project management, account manager type role. Again, interfacing with the client. A lot of their clients are bigger firms and in-house counsel, and it's nice to have a lawyer that can really talk the talk. Okay. So that's my top 10, not exhaustive, but a lot of areas that are really growing and developing. All right, so you know where you're starting from. You know what some of your destinations are. We'll talk a little bit more about destinations as we talk about this area. But now you need to know how to get to your destination, right? You need to know what turns to make. You need to know how to connect and build relationships. So all of you know this. Anybody who knows me knows that any opportunity I get to stand on my soapbox and talk about the importance of building relationships and how so many jobs never even get posted and don't exist, know that this is absolutely critical component. And I like to break it down to three key areas. Connect, maintain, trust, get hired. So connect. First, you want to just strategically build a list of contacts. You want to be as broad as you can. Everybody is a potential relationship. Everybody is a potential connection. Everybody needs to know what you're thinking about and what you're up to. And then you're increasing your percentages dramatically that you could land. So I don't need to say LinkedIn is very, very powerful. One, just building your contacts, but also telling your story. Now, if you're currently working at a firm and you're worried that somebody may know that you're looking, you need to obviously be cautious about what you put on your LinkedIn profile. But if you're not, LinkedIn is a great way to advocate and promote yourself. And then you want to start really connecting with more people. Now, you don't want to do this randomly. I'm sure we've all gotten invites on LinkedIn where you're saying, I don't even know this person. Why are they connecting with me? So you want to have a purpose. You want to, in the message when you're asking to connect, have 2 or 3 sentences. Say, I saw you were working at this organization. A friend of mine also works at that organization. I'm interested in the work you do. I'd love to connect with you. So don't just do the random connect, connect, connect. Actually write a couple sentences about why you want to connect with that person. Organizations. I say organizations from 2 perspectives. One, when you start thinking about what you may want to do, you want to get active in an organization or 2 that's doing that type of work. So if you want to be in HR, for example, you want to get involved in SHRM, Society for Human Resources Managers. You want to go to those meetings. You want to learn. You want to start connecting with people that are doing that work. You want to show, again, common theme, you need to show that you're actually interested in that instead of just randomly sending out a resume and cover letter saying, oh, I'm a lawyer and I have employment and labor and employment experience. I'd be great in HR. No, you have to do the legwork. You have to connect. So join 1 or 2 organizations and really get involved. Don't just go once and say, well, I tried it, I didn't meet anybody, and there's no jobs. Forget it. You got to go. You got to be consistent. The people that are consistent day in and day out, that's when opportunities are going to come. The other is, and this links to destinations, you want to start identifying organizations where you may want to work. And you want to get it as an exhaustive of a list as possible. And there's 3 or 4 key ways to do that. So you've started to identify positions where you may want to work. Now you want to identify companies, firms, organizations where there may be a good fit. And you want as comprehensive a list as possible. And then from there, you could winnow it down to 10 or 15. And in Seattle, there's some unbelievable organizations that we just never hear about. So there's, as I said, there's 3 or 4 key ways to do that. One, LinkedIn. So you could just do random searches on companies, maybe keywords that you're interested in. So if you're interested in water quality, you may do a search on LinkedIn for water quality, and every organization that has those 2 words will come up. So almost every company and every organization will have a LinkedIn page. So LinkedIn can be a great way to identify potential organizations where you may want to work. Second, and some of you probably already know this, the book of lists. The Puget Sound Business Journal comes out with a book of lists every single year. And it's very exhaustive. And it lists companies and organizations in a variety of different industries. And from there, you could start identifying organizations that you probably have never heard of. And you add them to your list, and you grow that list. And then you do research to see if it may be a good fit. So the book of lists is good. You could get it from the library. Next, if you want to work for a nonprofit, one of the best links out there is through the Seattle Foundation. The Seattle Foundation has a link that lists basically every single organization in Washington State. It's a very long, exhaustive list, and it will take you time to go through, but worthwhile. Some of the organizations you may be able to look at the name and know right off the get-go that it's not for you. But other ones may look really interesting, so you put it on your list, and you could start doing research about it, and you could see if it may be a good fit. Great, amazing list that is very, very exhaustive. It's the best out there. Then the other way is just to do some searches. So, for example, even this month's Seattle Business Magazine has a list of the 100 best companies to work for in Seattle. Small companies, mid-sized companies, and I think large companies. So all of a sudden, again, you may get another few nuggets of places that look really interesting, are listed as the best companies to work for, and you could add them to your list. Or you could just search Startup Seattle, and you'll get a list of the top 10. So you could just do searches on Google and get a list as well. And when you get that, you're going to have this great resource to start identifying people. You could also connect the organizations where you want to work with LinkedIn. So you know you want to work there. So all of a sudden you start seeing who's connected, who are you connected with that may have a connection at that organization, and you could start connecting with that person. Or if it's a friend of yours, see if they could do an intro for you. Organizations. Law school is also a great resource. I'm biased, right? I worked at Seattle U for 8 years. Law school career development and law school alumni offices could be a great resource to get connections. So if you are interested in doing compliance work, you can reach out to the career services or to alumni and say, I'm interested in this field. Are there any other grads that are doing this? And you could get a couple names that way. Undergraduate could be a great resource as well. Now, if you went to the UW or you went to WSU, that's going to be harder, right? Because you're like, hey, I'm a fellow UW grad. Nobody cares in this town, right? There's 100,000 of you. But if you went to a smaller school, this can be a great, great resource. So, for example, there was a student that I worked with that went to St. Olaf College in Minnesota. And there were attorneys that went to St. Olaf undergrad. And she reached out to those attorneys, and every single one was willing to meet with her because there was that connection with that school, and there's not that many St. Olaf grads out here that are attorneys. So if you went to a smaller school or even a big school but out of state, there's going to be grads here. My first job in Seattle that I ended up getting, which I loved, was through a UConn law grad. I mean, this was really serendipitous. This was sort of beyond coincidence. But in any case, I was working at a .com doing contract work, and he was starting a legal website, and he was going to be the point person. And I met him, and he's like, well, what's your deal? And I said, well, I just graduated from the University of Connecticut School of Law. And he's like, that's where I went. Now, you can imagine. We went out for a couple beers, and he hired me. Huge instant connection. UConn's a big school, but there's no UConn law grads out here, probably less than 10. So anybody I would connect with from UConn Law will be willing to meet with me. And then finally, unsolicited. Unsolicited is lower yield, but you can do an unsolicited informational interview. Letter. Hard copy letter. Email generally doesn't work because they don't know you, and it's just so easy to delete. But people have done this to great success. If you've really drafted a letter that connects with the person you're going to send something to, they're going to read it. And people don't get sort of good mail anymore. So they'll tend to open it. If it's interesting, if it shows that you've tailored it, they'll read it. Okay, so connect. Then connect, and within that, maintain. At the end of the day, it's easier to make a contact than to maintain it. And everybody in every single industry, especially the law, are not good maintainers. Because it's hard. Right? It's hard to stay in touch, and then you feel bad about, well, what do I contact them every month, or they're going to get sick of me, or I don't want to stalk people. But the key to successful relationship building is maintaining. So how do you maintain well? There's a variety of ways. First, maintaining really is only staying in touch once or twice, maybe 3 times a year, because people are busy. And time flies, so unless you're in a serious job search and you just want to give people updates every couple of months, This is only a couple times a year where you want to show that you are staying in touch with people and staying connected. So for me, as you may imagine, at this point I have so many contacts in Seattle. So a lot of times I'll run into people and I'll connect in a variety of other ways, but I go through my list once a year and I connect with everybody. So I'll send a specific email to every single person on my list, talking to them, or just sending a short note, asking something about whatever, their kids or the vacation they took, or something that we connected with about the last time. And it's uncanny how many responses I get, thanking me for keeping in touch. So I only do it once a year, but it really shows a commitment that I want to maintain this relationship with that person. You have to be very, very methodical, very organized. You have to have a good database. But the people that do that well, they never are looking for a job. They're never looking for business. They just have this unbelievable network of advocates that want to help them in any way they can. And even with me starting my business, people have just come out of the woodwork to really want to sort of help and refer clients to me and want to see me succeed. And it's because a lot of work that I put in to build a relationship. So how do you keep in touch? Holiday cards is a good way. You may see people at events. Maybe you met with somebody and they gave you an idea, and then you actually implemented that idea. You can reach back out to them and say, hey, just wanted to let you know, you had suggested that I develop a strong mission statement. And I did that, and I talked to somebody about that, and they were pretty impressed. I want to thank you again. I appreciate it. They're going to get back to you, right? Easy way for you to connect. Articles. You only want to do this like once a year, but articles is a great way to stay in touch with people. You have a conversation with somebody. They talked about their passion for China, and you read an article in Business Week, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy would like that. Hey, Bill, just wanted to quickly send you this article. Thought you'd be interested in it. Hope all is well. Regards, Sean. I do this all the time, and people do this to me all the time. And I really appreciate it because I don't have time to read every single article. And people don't have time, so they always appreciate when I do that. So that could be done too. And there are a variety of other ways as well. Then, effective questions. You want to show that you've done your due diligence. So you want to ask questions that really relate to the work this person's doing. So talk about opportunities. Talk about challenges in this position, in this industry, in this company. Show that you've done your due diligence. And then the last question that you always have to ask is, I'm just getting a lay of the land. Do you know anybody else I can talk to? So before you know it, you leave there maybe with one or two contacts. That always has to be your last question. Okay. Trust. Finally, you want to go the extra mile. You need to build trust. You need the people that you're meeting with to be able to say, this guy could do well in our organization. I'd like to recommend this person. I know that they could do a good job. So you really want to go the extra mile to show that you have done your due diligence, that you're passionate about the issues that this organization is working on, that you have knowledge, that you could come in and make a contribution. So you need to follow blog posts. You need to comment on blogs that are out there. And almost on every single subject, there are people blogging and there are people tweeting. So I don't want to feel like I'm being cliche, but you need to be out there in social media. Unbelievably important. A couple of the best sites that I like for finding a blog that may be on point for an area you're interested in are Alltop, A-L-L-T-O-P. That basically, you could go to that website, alltop.com, and just search keywords. And any blog that's out there will come up that you're passionate about. The other one that's pretty good too is called Feedly. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. Feedly.com. Again, it's one you could just search for, and blogs that are writing about areas you're interested in will come up. So start following them. Start getting involved in the community where you want to be. there was somebody I worked with who's now at Amazon who did an unbelievable job of networking, really met hundreds of people over the years, and he was not an expert social media guru, but he established a Twitter account, and he had started following people that were doing in HR and recruiting, and somebody had tweeted an article or a link to an article that was working at Expedia. Well, he retweeted that, and just from that retweet, the person who had posted that article got in touch with him. And she was a decision maker. He ended up getting an offer at Expedia, but took an offer at Amazon instead. But he had that offer. There was no job. But that was how the conversation initially started. As simple as that. So get involved in the community. Know the industry inside and out. Show that you could provide value to that industry. Okay, so now you have the foundation, right? Should you go or no? You've done a good inventory. You know exactly where you're starting from. You know some destinations. Destinations being potential positions and potential organizations, and you know how to build that list. And you have a good sense of the path to take. Right now, I want to open it up to questions. Thank you for listening. I've downloaded a ton of content, but hopefully it'll spark some ideas and get you on your way. Okay, questions? Yes, sir. Second one, the question was, what are the two sites I mentioned to find blogs that are good? One was alltop.com, and the other one was Feedly.com, Feedly.com. I think there was another question. Did you have a question first? Why don't we have the microphone? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Oh, hold on. Let's get the mic in front of you.
Can we consult with you individually on looking for career changes and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. After the session, come up and I'll give you my business card. And what I like to do is just have a 15 or 20-minute conversation with anybody who I potentially may work with, just to make sure it's a good fit and that I could provide value to you.
Great.
But yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions?
I've been looking at a lot of different job postings, and I'll see a lot of them that will say things like, that they're looking for 10 years of management experience or something like that. And being an attorney, I don't have a lot of management experience. And I'm wondering, do you recommend applying for that type of thing? Or, because I've just been kind of going like, well, I don't have that, so not considering it.
Every individual situation, it depends, right? So if you look at a position like that, and if every other component of their requirements you meet and could do and do well, then you have to just start thinking creatively. Okay, I haven't managed anybody directly, but, in many respects, you're managing a huge caseload of clients. And clients have a lot of needs. And they're constantly contacting you and calling you, and maybe that's a way to sort of make that argument that may get you in the door that you've done it. So you just, again, have to think like, okay, how have I managed? But 10 years may be tough too, right, depending on the other criteria that that organization may be looking for. Other questions?
How would you propose reconnecting with a contact you haven't spoken with for a few years? Like, say you knew this person before you went to law school, before you became a lawyer, and then you want to maybe transition back to an industry that you once did before, or something sort of different. How would you propose building a lost connection?
So that's a really good question. First, I'll say, don't let it happen again, right? Fair enough. Okay. Second, that can be tough because you don't want to come across as opportunistic. I just say, hey, I saw that you're now the VP of HR, and I'm thinking of getting into that. But you want to be genuine. So I think a way to reach out in that case is really just to say, hey, it's been a few years since we've connected. It's amazing how time flies. we get into our lives, and all of a sudden we look up, and it's been a few years, and I've decided that I am looking up now, and I've noticed that you're doing unbelievable things. I've been practicing law for 5 years, and now I'm sort of thinking about what else I may want to do, and one of the areas was blah, 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 and I know it's sort of out of left field, and it's kind of random, but I was, wondering if, I could pick your brain for 10 minutes. That's actually not bad. Are you recording that? This is recorded. Any other questions before we go to the web? Yes. Oh, hold on. Let's get the microphone in front of you so the people online can hear you.
When you're going into a new field, you're basically starting from scratch to a certain extent. And from my own observations of friends of mine who have been looking for new positions in different fields, and from my own experience, my observations are that people really aren't that interested in hiring people with lots of experience or people over a certain age. So I was wondering how you could speak to that about ageism in the workplace, whether it's possible for people in their late 40s or 50s or 60s to find another job or what. It's pretty easy to find a job, I think, when you're younger and you have some experience, but not so easy when you're older and have lots of experience.
Okay, thank you. First of all, 40s, 50s, that's not old. Okay, but that's a really good question, right? It's out there, it exists. First, and I think everybody knows this, is the year you graduated college or law school, don't put that on your resume. Okay? So it's nobody's business. Second, it's hard, and there's no taking away that it's hard, but it has to go back to the fact that you can provide value. You just need to make the case that the experience you have, the things you've done, this organization needs. So, for example, if it is more of a startup and they're thinking, why do we don't want the experience. We want somebody that's young and just going to work 100 hours a week, and you're applying for that job online, the likelihood you're going to get an interview may be small. So you need to go outside, tried and true. You need to sort of really connect with people. You need to show, I'm passionate about this area, and I have knowledge, and I have experience, and in thinking about the work you're doing, it looks like you need this. So you want to have an opinion. You want to have strategy. You want to think like, okay, how can I help this organization? What could I do? Why would they want me? It's hard work, but the way to do it is to get to a point where they're saying, I need her. And there's a whole process that you develop to get there. Should we go to the web?
Yeah, sure. I've got lots of questions, so maybe we'll just go sort of back and forth with in-house.
Okay, sounds good.
So the first is a quick clarification. If you could repeat the resource that you mentioned for the list of nonprofits. Somebody they didn't quite catch it when you mentioned it. So that's a quick sort of just give that resource. And then the question is to maybe describe or elaborate on how and why LinkedIn is a useful and helpful strategy in terms of the job search, whether it's traditional or non-traditional. Somebody was wanting you to sort of speak a little bit more about, is LinkedIn really that helpful of a strategy? Is it just sort of networking for more social, or is it really useful? So somebody just had put that. So we'll start with those two.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. The resource is the Seattle Foundation. So you could go to the Seattle Foundation website, and there's a link that will list all of these organizations. Now, if you can't find it on the Seattle Foundation website, shoot me an email, and I'll just send you the link. Okay? The second one, LinkedIn is not enough. Okay? Don't overly rely on LinkedIn. Don't say, I have 500 contacts and I have this great LinkedIn profile. I'm set. Why aren't I getting potential leads? But it is unbelievably valuable. I can't tell you how many times we've been able to connect people through LinkedIn based on other connections that we never knew somebody would have. So what LinkedIn does, it makes the connections public. So if you want to work in an organization like, let's say, Serengeti, and you are connected with me, normally before LinkedIn, you would have never known that I have any type of connection with Serengeti. It just wouldn't exist. How would you know unless we actually talked? But if we're connected via LinkedIn and you've maintained a relationship with me, right? You can say, hey, Sean, I realized I saw on your LinkedIn profile that you're connected with these 3 people at Serengeti. I've been looking into that organization, and it looks interesting to me. Would you mind making an intro? So right there is a perfect example of how powerful LinkedIn can be. Then the other good way LinkedIn is good, and again, you have to be careful if you're currently working in a position. You don't want to come across like you're looking, but in your profile, really being specific about what your knowledge is and telling your story. So that summary section on LinkedIn is very valuable. And then the top section as well. You don't want to just say attorney at law. You want to be specific about what you're looking for. So my LinkedIn profile is pretty good. It's not the best out there, but it's pretty good. So if you're thinking about updating your LinkedIn profile, you could go to mine and you could look at it and kind of get a sense of sort of how I laid things out, especially in my summary and then also in my title, how I put that. Any other questions in the audience? Yes, in the back.
I have a question, sort of after you apply for a job and you kind of email it off and then you don't hear anything, is there a point when you should follow up and either try to track down someone in HR through LinkedIn or through their website, or either send an email or a phone call follow-up, or is that just annoying to recruiters?
It's a good question. It depends. Sometimes, when you look at, it depends on how big the organization is. If you could find sort of the person that's the hiring manager for that position, maybe you're just working with the recruiter. From a recruiter's perspective, they receive so many applications for every position. So something that may cause them to relook at your application could potentially help. Now, through LinkedIn, a lot of times you can get the name of a recruiter, or you could get the name, if it's a big organization, of any recruiter, and you could try to see if you could connect with that specific person. People have done that, and it can potentially work, where you say, hey, I applied for this, I know you're slammed, and I don't want to be intrusive, but it's more on the assertive side, but if you're willing to do that, there's potential that it can work. If you could get the hiring manager, then generally I've always thought, well, does it really work? And they're getting emails all the time. But recently, I was working with a client, and she said, well, I think I'm going to send this email just to reiterate how interested I am. And my initial gut, and I didn't say this, was, okay, you could try, but I don't think they're interested. But we crafted a really good email, and she sent it off. Now, I don't know if this was the reason, but like a week later, she ended up getting contacted for an interview for that position. So maybe if they were on the fence, and all of a sudden they saw that there was real interest, sort of drive to try to get in front of her, maybe that put her over the edge. So that's anecdotal, but potentially it could be beneficial, and especially, again, with recruiters, if something can differentiate you, and maybe it is that phone call and conversation, then it could be worthwhile. But it could also be sometimes demoralizing as well. So you want to balance. Good question. Thank you. Should we take another one from the web?
So this question is tips on job hunting from a distance, and then also maybe similar to that kind of topic is a couple of viewers in the webcast audience are active duty military attorneys, and they're wondering if you have any thoughts about how they can kind of navigate transitioning into back into non-military law, and especially maybe coming back to Washington from where they're at.
Okay. Job searching from a distance can be difficult, right? Because you're applying for positions, especially if you have an out-of-state address, organizations may be thinking, does this person even want to be in Seattle? And you have a difficult time connecting with people because you're not here. So in general, as you know, if you're sort of searching out of state, you know it can be difficult. So the best thing you can do when you're looking out of state is, one, again, LinkedIn can be very powerful. And then you want to try to do the same thing you would do as if you were in state the best you can. So a lot of that may be just more phone calls, trying to connect with people just for a quick 10 minutes chat, saying, hey, you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it more over the phone. Then if you really want to be in that city, try to take a trip there and see if you could set up as many informational interviews, as many contacts as you can. Alumni is a great, great way. So, for example, the UW, WSU, big state school, if you're here, you can really leverage your alumni network in a different city. So if you look at Washington, D.C., for example, there's a lot of UW grads that are lawyers that didn't go to UW Law, and there's a lot of UW law grads that are there as well. SU as well, you could take any school, but not a ton. So if you really can reach out to your alumni network there, they're going to be more inclined to be willing to meet with you, talk to you, be an advocate for you, because you have that instant connection. Plus, they don't get that many contacts from there, so that's where it could be unbelievably valuable. And you could leverage your undergraduate institution as well. So if you went to school here at SPU, smaller school, and you want to connect with people in a different city, I guarantee there are SPU graduates all over the country. And outside of Seattle, they're going to want to talk to you because you have that instant connection. They're very loyal to small liberal arts school, and that's a great, great way to sort of start connecting with people out of state. Any other questions in the audience? Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, let's wait for the microphone.
This just goes to applying to jobs from out of state and just some basic strategies I've thought of, maybe P.O. boxes and maybe signing up for Google Phone. That way you can have an in-state telephone number, area code at least. I wasn't sure if that's kind of going overboard or if you've ever heard of people doing that.
Good, thank you. I haven't heard of people doing that, but I don't know if that's, I mean, if you really want to be there and you want to show that, hey, I'm willing to go, maybe having a local phone number could help. P.O. Box may be tough just because people may assume, like, okay, is this person here or they just have a P.O. Box address? But, if you want to show that, hey, where I'm located shouldn't be an impediment to thinking about me as a candidate, if you have a family member, if you have a friend, you can use a local address just to say, hey, I'm willing to go, and it kind of shows that. So I think that those could be good techniques. And of course, it goes by without saying that you want to be honest in all your dealings. If somebody asks you where you're at, you tell them Seattle. That goes without saying. Just remember the military question as well. With the military, I don't have a lot of expertise in this area, so I don't want to comment too much on that. I mean, I have found, especially with sort of younger attorneys that have gone into JAG, they have gotten unbelievable experience in a very short period of time. So when you're thinking about coming back to Seattle, for example, and you really want to leverage that, I found that it's generally highly respected, and most attorneys know that sort of 5 years in JAG is equal to so much compared to a civilian attorney because you've just been thrown into the fire and have had so much access very quickly in your career. So one, you just really want to leverage that for the military. Should we take another question from the web?
Sure. I'll give you two. They're pretty substantively different, but maybe it'll give you an opportunity to cover some various ground here. One is thoughts on sort of selling yourself in the application online, check the box kind of world that we live in now. What you spoke of earlier about being able to demonstrate value and those things, it's hard on an online application where you're just so limited with just responses on an application. So if you could speak to that. And then the other question had to do with reconciling, or what your thoughts are about reconciling a need if you sort of have a conflict in your values, essentially, where maybe you're somebody who really likes creativity and variety, but you have this kind of external need for stability and structure because you're a provider for family or others. And maybe your thoughts on how you go about reconciling that in a meaningful way, or how you'd address that in a job search intentionally.
Good questions. For the first one, the first one was selling yourself, right, online. For the first one, it is hard. I mean, you have a resume and you have a cover letter, and within that resume and cover letter, you want to make it as tailored as you can. So these days, a lot of organizations don't even ask for a cover letter, so then it becomes even more difficult. But let's assume that a cover letter is asked for. Within that cover letter, you really need to tailor that letter. It can't be generic. As soon as somebody reads generic and you already are coming from a different industry, it's going to get thrown out. So within a cover letter, that first paragraph, you need to really focus on that organization and that position and show that you've done your due diligence, and then have a sentence or two where you're really linking what they're looking for with what you offer. So that first one paragraph, very, very tailored. The second and third paragraphs are very substantive in nature. And again, you want to look at the requirements of the position, and you want to draft each paragraph that answers the specific requirements and shows the link between what you've done and what they're asking for. So again, very tailored as well. Depending on the positions you're applying for, you can maybe use those in different ways, but you want to really tailor that as well. And then your resume you want to tailor too. Resume is sometimes a little bit more difficult, but on the top, when you have a summary of qualifications, you want to make sure those 3 or 4 bullets are answering the questions of the job requirements for that position. And then within the bullets on each of your experiences, again, try to really think about all the work you've done and how it links. So very difficult just in applying online. Without a doubt, I get it, but you want to tailor as much as you can. The second question is also a very, very good one, and it depends on the specific situation of that person. And a lot of times when we think about these top 4, our knowledge, skills, and abilities, our values, our personality, and our purpose, career development and fulfillment can be tough because they don't always align. Now, especially with the values one, in this particular instance, a lot of times I like to look at career not as just a vertical trajectory, but more as a career lattice, where sometimes you're taking a lateral move because it's important for your core values of needing to do something for your family. So it's not the end-all and be-all when you're doing that. It may just be a pivot that you have to take for a period of time. And you want to be strategic in that pivot. So, for example, if you're still learning new skills or you're working in an organization that you like, there's a lot of flexibility in that job, that can really serve you well in terms of the priorities of being with family. You have stability in that job, et cetera, et cetera. Or maybe it doesn't have those things, but it has stability, and maybe outside of work you can develop skills that will take you further to what your ultimate career may be. So you just have to make decisions, but don't necessarily think about your job as a straight-up vertical trajectory. Think of it more as a lattice, and depending on where you are in your life, you may decide to take a lateral move, move companies, but doing the same position because it serves you very well in that particular stage of your life. For example, if you have young kids or you need to take care of a parent, et cetera, et cetera. Just as long as you have a good sense of what that purpose is, so you can stay focused on that ultimate goal, but within the trajectory, you may take different steps. Okay. Any other questions in the live audience? Should we take one or two more questions in the web? Do we have any? Okay.
So this is a question we get all the time, just from attorneys who are looking to transition to a non-law career or non-traditional field, and that is how to convince, I guess you might use the word, a prospective employer that you're serious about leaving the law. Sort of how can you address that issue? Because a lot of prospective employers for non-law jobs often don't want to take a chance on hiring a lawyer out of concern that they're going to return back to the law eventually, and they don't want to invest in that prospective employee. So what kind of suggestions or advice would you have for that sort of category of job seeker who really is serious, they want to make this transition? How can they market themselves in that way to address this issue of, I was a lawyer, I'm no longer wanting to follow that path?
Okay, thank you. That can be a tough one. Just because beyond that, a lot of people may think, oh, well, I can't afford you. You are a lawyer, and I think obviously there are lawyers out there that do unbelievably well, but there's a lot of lawyers that are just, making a wage, and it's not astronomical compared to what other positions in other industries pay. But a lot of times people may also think like, okay, well, I can't even afford you. So you have to make that argument as well. And to do that and to do it well, you really, again, need to develop that story. And you want to stay positive. You want to sort of talk about your career as a lawyer and say, I've learned an amazing amount, but I don't want to do it anymore. And you need to have concrete reasons why you don't want to do it. There has to be a link of, okay, I get it. This person has learned an amazing amount, but they don't want to be a lawyer. So you really want to think about what your message is. And with everybody you meet, you want to have that message. But, as I said, you don't want to just say, I'm miserable in the law and I need to get out and move into another field. You really want to say, the law is a wonderful profession. I've been practicing for 10 years. I've learned an amazing amount in a variety of areas, but it is not the job for me. If you're a litigator, adversarial, or you can say, so many people don't realize, but so much of the law is solitary. My normal day is spending 8 or 10 hours in my office, and I can do that when I have to, but it's driving me crazy. So I am really looking to get out. And maybe driving crazy, maybe a hard word. I don't necessarily recommend you using that. But you have to really make the case and really make the person see that it's a wonderful career. I've learned an amazing amount. I'm not leaving because I'm sort of miserable, or you might be, but you don't want that to necessarily be the reason. You want to have a concrete reason for leaving. And this has come up a lot even in my personal experience. So in doing career development at SU, I've hired most of the people I've hired have been lawyers, right? And they want to get out. Now, this is a natural connection. And then I've also been on committees for many other positions at the law school that were, that were really legal positions but not practicing. And what really put a person out of the running was that it really looked like they were just trying to leave the law, and they didn't really want to do this job. You need to convince me that you actually want to do this job, and not just that you want to leave a bad situation and this situation may be better. So again, it goes back to that value. You really have to show that you've done your due diligence. You really have to show people that you know about what they're doing and you want to be part of that industry. Just sort of coming across like, okay, well, I'm unhappy in what I'm doing, but I'm still trying to figure out what the next step may be. A potential employer is going to say, this person, they don't want to be doing this. So that's critical. Okay, we have 5 more minutes. Are there any other questions in the web or live? Should we take 2 more questions and then call it good?
Yeah, there are lots of questions from the web.
Good.
So this particular one is advice about getting into public sector work. Is there anything unique about transitioning from a law firm job to a government job versus another private sector type job?
And this is practicing law from a law firm to a lawyer position in the public sector, or?
It's not entirely clear.
I can answer in both ways. I can answer in both ways. So one, if you're working at a private firm, but your passion really is in the public sector, the tried and true advice does not change, right? You need to show. You can't just tell somebody, oh, I've been practicing in a firm, but I really want to be in the public sector. Show me. What have you done? Are you doing any volunteer work? What do you know about our organization? Do you have a blog about this particular area of where we are focused our area on? You need to show me that you're interested in that area. So even if you are in a private firm, if you're doing pro bono work or volunteer work that really shows, hey, this is actually what I want to do, or you've done all your due diligence, you're following blogs, you're reblogging, you're commenting on blogs, you're retweeting, you're really showing that, no, this is what I want to do, and you could see from the following ways that I want to do it. That at least starts to show, because I think in the public sector world, now kind of pivoting to if you want to be an attorney in the public sector from the private sector, a lot of the attorneys will naturally say, well, this guy's made his millions and now wants to do good. So a lot of times those public sector attorneys won't buy it. I've heard that, so it's anecdotal, but I've heard that from a number of people over the years, that sort of that's an initial gut reaction. But they do hire attorneys that were in the private sector when they show that this is really what they want and they're passionate about it. So if you can show that, you can overcome that potential obstacle. And the same thing if you want to move maybe into a program manager or a project manager role, you come from a private firm, again, you just have to really think strategically, or like, what are the things that I've done that really link to what they're looking for? And then you need to get involved. Okay, it's hard work, but you need to get involved. Okay, last question.
Okay, last question. And also, can you please give your specific direct contact information? A number of people have said, could you please just make sure that's out there? So this final question is, when somebody has certain experience, let's say in litigation, and they're looking at compliance jobs, but those positions all require specific experience in compliance, or they're looking at a job in contracts and they want experience specifically drafting IT contracts or something. Do you have suggestions or thoughts about how to bridge those kinds of, we need specific experience type requirements?
Even though it could be difficult to think about now, the economy in Seattle has really picked up dramatically. There are positions out there. There are opportunities. Positions may still be competitive, but there are opportunities. So when you read a specific job description, sometimes that is the ideal candidate, but there's a lot of flexibility in that. So, and some of you may have read, if it's a big organization, you don't want to just apply for every single job that's listed on their website, because they have the automatic filters and you could potentially get blacklisted from that. So you want to be careful. But if you think you meet some of the criteria of a specific position, you want to apply. Now, the ways to sort of get over the potential objections that could come up are varied. You know, sometimes if you think, okay, this may be out of my realm, so you want to take more of a risk on that cover letter. So in that second paragraph, you may say, one of the key criteria that you're looking for is specific experience in healthcare compliance. I don't have that experience. But what I do have is blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And in addition, this and this and this. And in doing research on what the industry is looking for, or what the key components of this position are, or what's important, I see that this experience could be completely applicable to to doing this job and doing it well. So again, you need to make the case. You need to make the case. You need to make them see that you have all this unbelievably comprehensive experience that can be utilized. Plus, soapbox time. You need to get out there. You need to connect with people. You need to make the case one-on-one. Because when you do, and you connect in that way, people are going to want to advocate for you. My contact information is right up there. It's thetrustedcoach.com with the. My email is sean@thetrustedcoach.com. And thank you for your time. This has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you for all the great questions.
So this concludes our presentation for today, and I'd like to sincerely thank you, Sean, for sharing all your helpful guidance and your insight. It's been a really fantastic presentation. I'd also like to remind everyone that the Lawyers Assistance Program is here to provide support and help to attorneys on a wide variety of topics, as well as referrals, resources, and information. And I also want to let you know that our next Work Plus Wellness presentation, which is going to be focusing on career transitions for mid-career attorneys, will take place Wednesday, September 10th. Registration, again, is required, just like for this presentation. Please check the website for that in the next few weeks, and you'll see opportunities to register either in-house or webcast for that. And thank you so much.